Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about the 1966 film A Man for All Seasons. And in this film we meet Sir Thomas More, who is a real historical figure. He, amongst other things, wrote the book Utopia. And Sir Thomas is an important man in Tudor England. He's a personal friend of King Henry VIII, and he's one of the lead candidates for the role of Chancellor when the incumbent dies. And indeed, when that event comes to pass, he does get the job, becoming one of the most powerful men in the country. But that's also where everything starts to go wrong. King Henry, you see, wants a divorce from his wife, Catherine of Aragon, who is now beyond childbearing age. The king doesn't have a son. Catherine cannot give him one, and so he intends to marry he doesn't have a legitimate son. And Catherine can't give him one. So he intends to divorce her, marry his mistress, Anne Boleyn, who he believes will give him the son he so desperately desires. Unfortunately, because England is a part of the Catholic Church, the king's divorce requires the permission of the Pope, and the Pope is a prisoner of the King of Spain, who is also Catherine of Aragon's nephew. In the circumstances, probably not a surprise that the Pope declines to give his consent to the King of England. This is a problem, and another of King Henry's advisors comes to him with a proposal. Have Parliament pass a law that proclaims the King of England to be the head of the Church in England, empowering himself to grant his own divorce and circumventing the Pope. Obviously, Pope not going to be very happy about this. And also not happy about this is Sir Thomas More, who is a devout Catholic. He does not recognise this new law as being valid, asking, if the world is round and the king passes a law that says it is flat, would it be so? He resigns and he refuses to swear an oath confirming the king's command over the church. He admits that he could be wrong in his belief, but that it is nonetheless his belief, and therefore his conscience prohibits him from meeting the king's demand. He does promise that he will not speak openly against the oath, hoping that by a combination of this silence and his long-time personal relationship with the king, he will protect himself and his family. Doesn't work out that way, and the ever-escalating efforts of King Henry and his agents to force Sir Thomas More to swear the oath make up the latter part of the film. So A Man for All Seasons, this is a cinematic adaptation of a play by Robert Bolt, and it stars Paul Schofield as Sir Thomas More, who also played the role in the original stage production both in London and in New York on Broadway. So let's talk about the film. And I have to start off by saying this is a sumptuous production on every level. It looks great. It's got Oscar-winning costumes and cinematography. It also sounds great. It's packed with clever dialogue that is beautifully delivered by a very talented cast. Some people have kind of criticised its pacing and says it does feel like everyone's coming out and giving these great lines and then walking off again. But there are some really great lines in here. Paul Schofield picked up the Oscar for Best Male Lead for his performance, and the film also won Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay adapted from another medium. So very, very well-received film. If you want to watch just a film that's thoroughly well made from top to bottom and executed really effectively, this is a very good example of filmmaking. In all of those technical senses. It's kind of very nice to listen to. It's very nice to watch. Everybody does a great job. That said, I wouldn't be me if I didn't have something to complain about, and I do. Because for me, the film has a key weakness. A weakness that's also in the original play on which it was based, and that is that for all its focus on the theme of conscience and standing by your beliefs, it overlooks a couple of things. Number one, it overlooks the times in Sir Thomas More's life and career where the shoe was on the other foot. More's refusal to swear the oath demanded by the king and the price that he ultimately paid for that decision are historical fact. He was indeed a man who stood by his convictions. But one of the ways in which he stood by those convictions before this was in ordering the execution of Protestants during his time as Chancellor. Because this is the thing, stand by your convictions. It sounds like a noble thing, and it can be, but what if your convictions are wrong or lead you to do cruel things? Is it better to stand by your convictions and do cruel, terrible things? or to re-examine your convictions. In ignoring this question and how it applies to Moore's life, the playwright has doubtless made his life a lot easier, made it much easier to write the original play, and therefore, to easily state an argument that what the world needed was a man of total integrity, like Sir Thomas More. But I think it's, at the end of the day, that argument is built on hollow foundations. It's fundamentally undermined by the reality that Moore's adamantine sense of right and wrong also led him to commit the same kinds of crimes as the men who persecuted him. And the film's making the argument that, I guess, that, those men are persecuting Moore for earthly rewards, not out of any deep-seated belief. That's the film's opinion. I'm sure some of these people probably had deep belief of their own. Similarly, in situating Moore as a heroic figure and ignoring his cruelties, the script creates some conflicting messages for itself. It depicts every other character who has power as being at the very least cynical and power-hungry, if not outright evil. But it's done so by ignoring Moore's own crimes/cruelties. They weren't crimes because they weren't against the law, but neither is what's happening to him. It also, speaking of that, has Moore champion the rule of law. He gives this eloquent speech that he would give even the devil the protection of the law, for without the law he himself would have no safety. This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coasts. Man's laws, not God's, and if you cut them down, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? And yet it is those very laws, man's law, that Moore has championed, that he then flouts in his refusal to swear the king's oath, putting his own conscience ahead of the law. The film kind of fails to engage with this question. You've got a character who says, the law is the law is the law, you must follow the law, except when it conflicts with your own conscience. That's a very big exception, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, this is a beautifully made film with great performance. But, the script sets out to make an argument. I don't think it necessarily delivers that argument all that well when you know the full context of what was happening. If you just watch it by itself and you don't have the context and you don't know about the things that Moore did, perhaps it works better. But I do know. And now so do you. Okay, that's A Man for All Seasons. Next time, we'll be talking about a show that took a very different approach to the same period of history when we look at the first 2 seasons of The Tudors. But yeah, that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.